I'm Ken Harbaugh, host of Warriors in Their Own Words. In partnership with the Honor Project, we've brought this podcast back at a time when our nation needs these stories more than ever. Warriors in Their Own Words is our attempt to present an unvarnished, unsanitized truth of what we have asked of those who wear our country's uniform. Thank you for listening, and by doing so, honoring those who have served. Last episode, we heard from Lieutenant Colonel Winston M. Roche, and today we're finishing his story. Lieutenant Colonel Roche served in the United States Army's 5th Infantry Division. With the busy fall season just around the corner, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. Too busy with your end-of-summer goals to cook but want to make sure you're eating well? With Factor, skip the extra trip to the grocery store and the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up too, while still getting the flavor and nutritional quality you need. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy, then get back to crushing your goals. Level up with Gourmet Plus options prepared to perfection by chefs and ready to eat in record time. Treat yourself to upscale meals with premium ingredients like broccolini, leeks, truffle butter, and asparagus. With Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. We offset 100% of our delivery emissions, source 100% renewable electricity for our production sites and offices, and feature sustainably sourced seafood in our meals. This August, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door, ready in just 2 minutes, no prep, no mess. Head to factormeals.com/warriors50 and use code warriors50 to get 50% off. That's code warriors50 at factormeals.com/warriors50 to get 50% off.
I was in 4 major battles. Chateau Thierry, the Aisne Marne front, and then Saint-Mihiel was the first big American push, and Meuse-Argonne was the worst. That was the bitterest, wickedest battle that we were in. But as I say, when the night before you know you're going to attack, you hardly sleep at all. You just sleep fitfully, and you dread it. And you do the job you're told to do. You're elated when you have success. We get our troops into no man's land, and the wave is moving. The engineers go on ahead and cut the enemy wire. If this is in daylight, of course, you usually would not set up an attack on a beautiful sunny day. That's the time you stay in your holes, because you're sitting ducks. That's the way we fought. In the early days of the war, they would mass formation shoulder to shoulder, like they did way back in the 1800s, when the troops would be one long, solid line where you could just bunker yourself there and just level your gun and just shoot them like clay pigeons, where the casualties were terrible. And at some spots in World War I, we had to attack like that. And sometimes we were given orders in a day when it didn't rain. It would be murky, cloudy, and not too sharp in the air, but you could see very clearly. Lots of times we had to advance on an objective and right in the face of it. I was wounded 3 times. I was machine gunned once through the side. I didn't even know my hit until my rifle flew out of my hand. And the bullet had already gone through my side, right between, clean as a whistle, between 2 ribs. and took off a chunk off my thumb, chunk out of this finger, and the top of that finger off. And I wondered at first, what'd they do? Or how'd that happen? I didn't even know I was hit. And then I thought, oh boy, was I lucky. It just hit my rifle. And then later on, I got real wet in my drawers. And I thought I'd peed in my pants because I was so scared. But it was the blood running down my legs, running down my side. It happened so quick, and you have to do with it. Not like me, when I picked my rifle up and kept on going. I did know that I was wounded. I knew I'd been hit by something, but I didn't think it was anything, luckily. Now, of course, that bullet had gone through my leg or my chest or something and hit something inside of me. It'd been a different matter. But I kept on going, and we dreaded the gas. If the enemy had been used to using gas in our sector that we was in, we dreaded it because the gas masks were bulky, pain in the necks, hanging on your chest. They were in the way of everything you did, and they were hard to get on and off. It took time to get them out of their case. The manufacturers didn't make everyone perfect, and some of them even didn't fit good, so that all you had to hang on to was to keep your nose plugged up and try to keep it out of your eyes, because once the gas got into your eyes or your nose, or you were a dead duck so far as any more action is concerned, because you couldn't breathe. You couldn't see. Your eyes would flow like a faucet. The water would just run down your cheeks and burn. And you've seen pictures probably in magazines of men coming back from gas attacks holding onto one another's shoulder with bandages over their eyes. That's because they're temporarily blind. And I've been that way twice. The second time it was very bad. I was in the hospital for several weeks before I got back. And you think you're a goner, you choke, you can't see, and you burn to be hell. You just think you're a goner. You're going to die right there. It's a terrible feeling. It's a lot worse than a bullet. Now, we'll talk about tank warfare for a moment. We just happened to be in an area and fighting over terrain that was not amicable to tank warfare. So I never fought in front of or behind one of the big tanks. And we had, for its time, a very good tank invented by the British. And I forget the name of it, but it had a track that went clear around, the tread went clear around the length of the tank. It just moved all the time on this track. The modern tanks have tracks just around the wheels under the armor plating. But this one, the tread went clear around the length of the tank, one continuous speed. It just crawled on these two treads. We never saw one of those in action. Those were mostly in action on the British front and in the northern part of France. The tank that I did see, and I got to drive one, was a one-man French Renault, and it's a little tiny tank like a Model T automobile would have been in those days. Just room for one man in there, and you had your machine gun, 30 caliber French machine gun, and Of course, they fended off the bullets, and they were a ball to drive. I've driven one of those, and the noise is terrible. The engine's right there in your lap, practically. It's right under you. And the smell is terrible. If you get into one of those in a gas attack, you're in bad trouble. You have to have some clear air, and you can't wear your gas mask and drive one of those tanks. At least I couldn't, because you just have those slits to see out of. But I've been in them and heard the bullets hit them like rain hit the tin roof. So anyhow, I was more what you might call a fun caper, just to see what it was like to drive a tank under fire. So it didn't amount to too much, but I did feel a great security in them. I knew the average bullet would have torn me to pieces, was going to hurt me. It just bounced off the armor of the tank. But they were great little tanks if you had the open country where you could move them, take them right up to a pillbox, machine guns, and put a machine gun, a 50 caliber machine gun out of commission right now, because you just shoot right into the aperture. They couldn't do a thing about it. Gas warfare is terrible because first you can't see it in the dark. And usually most of the gas encounters we had were in the night, a dry night when it wasn't raining, and usually on a quiet front where a gas attack usually preceded a big attack. And this is the way they hope to get the first breakthrough our lines, by sneaking up on us and knocking us out with a gas attack. And it's similar to the smell of a skunk. Once you get a whiff of it, you never forget it. You know, the minute you get a little tiny whiff, you know right away there's gas in the air. And you can even smell it in your own house, this practically just cooking gas when there's a burner on. If you're at all sharp, you'll smell it, hey, the gas burner's on somewhere, so you'll shut it off. Well, it penetrates everything, penetrates your clothes. And in World War I, we had one uniform, one. We did everything in that one uniform, and you kept it as long as you were in action. No extra pair of boots. We had 2 pairs of underwear, one you had on. We had 1 shirt, 2 pairs of socks, 1 pair of pants, 1 blouse, 1 helmet. That's all. We lived on the cold coffee we had in our canteen and biscuits to hardtack. Biscuit about that thick and about 1.5 inches square, where you dunked it in cold coffee for you. If you try to bite it, you'd break your teeth. To break it is so tough, so we just dunk it in coffee. We lived on those things. We were in the Argonne Forest, where, by the way, we saw some of the most beautiful air battles. As I say, we didn't have radio from airplanes to the ground observers. We had to wait until the aircraft landed to give us the information that there are several thousand troops massing on hill so-and-so, or coming up ravine so-and-so for an attack. This was all had to be done vocally, orally. On our front, the sawmill front, there were 3 sausage balloons, observation balloons. One about 2 or 3 miles to our left, one almost immediately in front of us. Saint-Mihiel was to our left, Reneville was over here, and there's one up there maybe 5 miles away, all of them observing. Now, this was just before we went into the Argonne Woods, which would be the battle that finished World War I. So we had won the Battle of Saint-Mihiel. And Saint-Mihiel was just a big bulge in the line, been there 4 years. And that bulge stayed there all through the war until the Americans picked it as their first major action for an American army. So General Pershing and his generals worked out, and they flanked it. And we cut off all the mainline troops. They were surrounded, and we flattened it out in 8 hours and pushed it 3 miles into German territory. And that thing had been there for 4 years. They hadn't been able to get it out. We were resting because we were going over the top in the next morning into the Argonne, which proved to be 42 days of pure hell. 42 days we were in there without a bath or relief, under fire all the time, losing men to beat hell. Well, anyhow, here are these 3 balloons, and there's a dogfight, beautiful dogfight going on up in the sky. To watch these little biplanes, they look like little toys, and they were slow. 150 miles an hour was fast in those days. For instance, I remember that when I was flying the DH-4, I'd have to put it into a dive to get 135 knots. They'd cruise along. You could land at Jenny at 30 miles an hour. 30 miles an hour. And you took off at about 40. So that's how simple they were, see. But here are these little biplanes, graceful circles and loops and chandelles and Immelmans and trying to get on each other's tail. And many, many times we've seen 3 or 4 of them going on, and suddenly here will come up black smoke, trail of black smoke when it gets shut down, see. And we were focused on this dogfight going on, and finally one of the fellows suddenly said, "Hey, look, here comes one for the balloons. You're going to attack the balloons." So we all shift our attention there. Sure enough, here comes this Fokker aircraft with the old black cross on it and heading right for this balloon over Reneville. And they shoot tracer bullets. This is in order for the pilot to see if he hits the balloon. And you can see the white trail of the tracers go in one side of the balloon and come out the other. Of course, on the ground, we had a ring of Lewis and Browning machine guns shooting up. And they shot this one down. We could see very plain the bullets entering it and going out and coming out the other side. I think I was the one that said, "Oh, God, he missed all 3 of them." Because there they were all still hanging. He's zooming off into the distance. Then here comes another one chasing towards him. And it was an American, and they said later, I can't verify this, but they said it was Eddie Rickenbacker, and he was on that front. His squadron was on that front. So it could have been that they said it was him. About that time that we saw Rickenbacker, if that was him, go across, the first one exploded. One great big woof, just like that. And then suddenly, just a few seconds, whoop, this one goes up, and then all 3 of them. See, the bullet ignites it inside. It doesn't explode right now. It kind of builds, I guess, until it gets a certain amount of air, and up it goes, just like an explosion. So that was a beautiful show. Right there, everything right in front of us. So we never forget that. So naturally, the first thing that the Americans, and I guess the French did that too in the early parts of the war, and thought about that, to make your own bombs. So we take 3-inch shell casings and just chunk them full of all kinds of stuff, everything we could put in there, and make our own bombs, seal them up, put the fuse in. And we had different types of fuses, of course. We had detonators and as well as live fuses. American kids, that's the beauty of an American soldier. He's so resourceful. We would get over a road while we were supposed to be observing for enemy activity and everything. And we'd get over a road and we'd see a line of trucks. We'd try to work out our windage and we'd let them go, see. And then we'd fire them back and we'd try to watch the trajectory as they dropped. And sometimes we'd be 200 or 300 yards off target because you got to figure the windage and you have to work out the trajectory. So we had made some good hits. We got pretty good. After you did it maybe 3 or 4 times, you got pretty good where you could come pretty close to it. So the bombers that we used to make and dump over the sides, they did pretty good damage. Yeah.
That was World War I veteran Lieutenant Colonel Winston Roche. Lieutenant Colonel Roche was 93 years old when he recorded this interview. 2 years later, in 1994, Roche died in Los Angeles, California, at the age of 95. Next time on Warriors in Their Own Words, we'll hear from an altogether different kind of warrior, one who served in the shadows. CIA agent Mike Howard served as an operations officer from the Cold War to the global war on terror. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast to see this interview in your feed. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate and review. It really helps other listeners find the show. Warriors in Their Own Words is a production of Evergreen Podcasts in partnership with the Honor Project. Our producer is Isabel Robertson. Assistant producer is Declan Roars. Audio engineer is Sean Roll Hoffman. Special thanks to Evergreen executive producers Joan Andrews, Michael DeAloia, and David Moss. I'm Ken Harbaugh, and this is Warriors in Their Own Words.
History is complicated. The story of human progress is long, messy, and riddled with controversies big and small. On Conflicted, we dive headfirst into history's most infamous events and contentious figures. We try and untangle the good from the bad, the fact from the fiction, and the monsters from the misunderstood. Was Genghis Khan a murderous butcher or a civic pioneer? Did the Allied powers go too far in firebombing the German city of Dresden at the twilight of World War II? And how did the Marquis de Sade acquire such a sinister reputation? And was any of it true? These are just a few of the tough questions we wrestle with and investigate on Conflicted. So if you love history or just enjoy a good story, please join me, your host, Zach Cornwell, for a fascinating new topic each and every month. Conflicted, a history podcast, is available on Spotify, Apple, or wherever else you get your podcasts. I hope to see you soon.